Where is he? Where is Sauron? Hello, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to my review of the 6th episode of Season 2 of Lord of the Rings of Power Rings, Lord of the Rings. This one titled, Where Is He? Which is such a fun title. It's just like, oh yeah, just where is he? We'll just have it be that. Also, as you probably already noticed, I am not appearing on camera today. I've actually been feeling kind of under the weather the past couple days. I was hoping to rally and be on camera for y'all so you could see my beautiful, pretty face for this one, but I kind of look like a hobo at the moment. So I am just going to appear off camera, and you can just use your imagination to envision my beautiful, glorious, amazing face. All right, with that said, let's get into this review. I'm going to dive into spoilers pretty quickly here, but just staying general for a moment. I think that this episode just underscores this show's strengths and weaknesses. Everything that's continued to be a strength of this show, such as the visuals, the music, the dwarf storyline, and the Celebrimbor / Sauron storyline are just still hitting it out of the park for the most part with me. And then the things that have continued to be the weakest parts of the show for me continue to be the weakest parts of the show for me, namely the Numenor plot. However, I will say that the alchemy changed a little bit on this episode in that I thought the Numenor plot this episode, while not amazing, did tick up a little bit for a couple things that I really did enjoy that they did this episode. And then us going over to the Stranger / the Harfoot plot, I think went down in my estimation when it's been solidly strong overall this season. Not my favorite part, but certainly not a negative. Here I do think it's starting to really drag and get fairly rote in my mind. But with that said, let's dive into it. I'm going to start off with the part of this episode that I think is easily the strongest. Continues to be Sauron and Celebrimbor. I really liked seeing Celebrimbor's just deteriorating mental state this episode. Again, the show is moving too quick. I wish the show had a couple more episodes so we could really feel the length of time that this is taking, because I get a sense that it's been several months since the start of the season in universe, if not even longer than that, and yet we don't really feel that in the show. And then also it's taking forever for people like Elrond and gil-galad it's like calling him that, to get to Eregion. So, like, the sense of time and pace, it was a major problem in Season 1. It's still a problem here, though not as bad, but it is still there. That said, Celebrimbor's just descent into just a fervor, I thought really landed for me. I loved his very Shakespearean sort of tragedy monologue that he gets at the opening of the episode, and him forgetting his worker's name, but then immediately remembering and regretting it when he's with a friend and sort of being vulnerable with Sauron, even though he doesn't know he's Sauron. And Sauron sort of, again, doing just a great job manipulating that, say, hey, focus on this, take your time, I'll deal with everything else. And then him taking that to just be able to kind of manipulate the entire city to what he needs. And I think that ultimately caps off in a fantastic sequence where Sauron manipulates Celebrimbor and what he's seeing to show Eregion is like doing, it looks beautiful, it looks great, and sort of plays again to Celebrimbor's ego of like, you can do something bigger than the Silmarils. And I love the call out. There's two call outs to the Silmarils here in this episode, both here and in Adar's storyline that I really liked. And he said, people will forget the Silmarils. They'll be but a whisper. People will remember your rings. And we know that is true. He even uses the word precious at one point, but not for the reasons that Celebrimbor would ever wish, which is very sad. And I like that tragedy that is brought here. The show, I think, does a really great job of building itself as a prequel where we know where this is headed, and it allows it to feel like just like, oh man, I feel the tragedy that's incoming for all of these characters, and it builds very well this season, and you feel it in moments like that. Also, just call out to the production. This went viral online, but the sequence where it turns from day into night, they did practically. If you haven't looked it up, look it up on Twitter. They have some footage of how they did that. It's so cool. Like, say what you will about the show, love it or hate it, the technical aspects, the filmmaking on display is just freaking amazing, and they do wonderfully. Another call out here, Bear McCreary, who is, again, my favorite composer and is killing it with this show. There's some really great moments where, like, when Sauron's going up to orchestrate he's like, sort of like, yes, my plan is completing. and you hear the orchestra sort of building up, and it's sort of meant to symbolize like Sauron sort of raising the orchestra as if he's been conducting this whole thing. What a fantastic job musically there, and just underscoring the themes of the show. So Bear McCreary is killing it on that front. And also, I love the actor who plays Sauron's face when he has these perfect faces of like, you just see the little tiniest hint of a smirk at every single moment where he's getting his way when he manipulates someone. It's not so much that it like breaks his sort of stoic look, but you just can barely see the little tiny hint of a smirk, and it's just very, very well done. Love him. He is this show's secret weapon in my mind, as well as Celebrimbor. The actor playing Celebrimbor is also really, really good at showing his like anger, frustration, his sort of artistic fervor, but also the vulnerability. So just everything on that front, I'm really, really loving. Jumping over to a storyline I have more critiques of is Adar and Galadriel. I, in concept, really like this whole idea of Adar trying to convince Galadriel to see him as a person and to trust him and to give him information, and saying like, hey, we both want to take down Sauron. It's played so well, and the scenes themselves are overall really great. Like him correcting her on saying orc to Uruk, him sort of saying like, look, Sauron manipulated me. He gave me what I wanted, gave you what you wanted, and that's how he manipulates people. Like the connection that these two characters have works very well in my mind, and I do really. I thought their sequences together were great. However, what frustrates me is Adar's whole plan, because it becomes very clear that Adar suspects that Halbrand is Sauron, and that is confirmed to him by Galadriel in this episode. And so I'm just sitting here wondering, if he knows that Halbrand is Sauron, why in the world would he do the thing that Halbrand, back in episode 1 of this season, wanted him to do and attack Eregion? I know he knows that Sauron is there, but he knows that Halbrand wanted him to do that, wanted him to attack Eregion. So he should know that it's a manipulation on Sauron's part of him. And Galadriel calling him out on that is makes it even more frustrating, because he should realize it. And I just found that unendingly frustrating. What I think would have made it work for me is if we got a greater sense of Adar's more blinded anger at Sauron, but we've never gotten to see that on screen. The only thing we've gotten to see on screen is back in episode 1 of the season, where he betrayed Sauron, which again was a great sequence, loved it, but we never really have gotten a sense other than what Adar said, and he's always said it in a stoic way, both in season 1 and season 2 with both actors, is his anger at Sauron, but we've never gotten a chance to really feel it. And so I don't buy his sort of blind sort of targeting of Eregion without actually thinking it through. So that sadly just feels like the plot trying to force the plot to happen and not really making the characters justify that. And speaking on that front, let's jump over to Tom Bombadil and the Stranger. Because this is another area that I did not love. We're doing the tropey thing of character gets a vision of the future of a friend in danger, so they decide whether to abandon their destiny or go and save their friend. It's happened in a billion fantasy things. Star Wars, in Empire Strikes Back was probably the biggest version of that people know, but it's been throughout. It's just a trope of the genre. And seeing it here, it's not really doing anything new. And I don't really feel the stakes of it here either. Like with Empire Strikes Back, you feel the stakes of Luke wanting to leave Yoda to go and save Han. You feel that there's weight to that decision. Here, it's like, well, he finds a staff, which is kind of a nebulous thing of like getting his power. Like which we know he needs his power, but like he's still powerful without it. He's just not able to focus it as well. So like it's kind of a vague sense of his staff. And then the threats that he's facing, both Sauron and the Dark Wizard. Sauron, we see a bunch of other characters dealing with it. I don't know what the Stranger is going to do to that situation. And then the other threat that he could possibly face, which is more direct in his story, is the Dark Wizard. And we haven't seen enough of the Dark Wizard and what he's planning to do to Middle-earth to really feel the sense of threat that he presents. I certainly understand him as a threat to the Stranger himself and to, the Harfoots, Nori and Poppy. But because he's gone after them with the moth wizard ladies, as well as the really cool masked-looking dudes. But we haven't gotten a sense of what the Dark Wizard's plan is. What is he planning to do? What is his aim? He just wants to control things? is that, like, I don't know enough of, like, what kind of person he is to know that that's bad. Like, Sauron, well, the show hasn't shown us how evil Sauron is in terms of being a leader, just a manipulator. We know Sauron from other pieces of media. The show already had that legwork done for it. Whereas here, the Dark Wizard, since we don't know if it's, not one of the wizards that we already know, it's just vague Dark Wizard. We need to know a little bit more about him to understand the threat he poses, to understand that being a choice for the stranger to make. But since he's so nebulous as a character outside of his direct threat to the stranger, it seems to me it's like, yeah, the stranger going after him makes the most sense to me because he's a threat to him, but not really to more of Middle Earth. I didn't even realize that he was like a larger Middle Earth threat until Tom Bombadil said it. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess he would be. But yeah, so that choice didn't work for me. And then while I really, really like philosophically the stuff going on with Nori and Poppy, especially Nori sort of looking at these other Harfoots and saying like, oh, these are Harfoots with a sense of place rather than being nomadic. And I like that sort of like vaguely hinting towards maybe where the Harfoots go with when they settle in the Shire. Ultimately, again, I don't really care enough for this Harfoot population. Like, nobody is a nobody. Like, I don't really feel for him, and his relationship with Poppy that's building here, it feels so rushed that I don't really invest in it that much. So just, it doesn't land as much as I conceptually like it. I think the show is trying a little bit too hard to do too much with it, and too little at the same time, and it doesn't land. Jumping over to an area that improved slightly for me, though, rather than sort of decreasing in my opinion, the Numenor plot. Everything in Isildur works much stronger for me because he's a character that I have felt some investment in. A lot of the problem with the Numenor plot is a lot of the characters I don't really care about, and Isildur I have grown to care about, and I find his sort of dogmatic belief in the Queen and goodness to be a very Tolkien-esque kind of character trope. It reminds me very much of the book version of Aragorn, versus the movie version, who has a little bit more self-doubt than Isildur does here. But Aragorn in the books is very much like, I know what is right, and Isildur's kind of capturing that for me, and I do really like that. And his conversation with his daughter, while not exactly setting me afire because I don't really care for his daughter, I thought were interesting sort of philosophical looks at him, and him being confronted by the Queen with that, the very person he's trying to stand up for, was I thought strong. What would have landed more for me is if the reveal at the end where she stands in for him in the battle, or in the sort of like trial by sea beast, I guess, is that if she was sort of moved by his belief, so that she was like, I will take this for you because I believe in what you are doing, and that sort of like makes him question like, oh, was I wrong? Have I endangered the very thing I believe in by being so dogmatic? That would have been an interesting sort of philosophical push there for his character. It doesn't land as strong as that, though. It seems more like she's just trying to save him, and so it doesn't land on. It lands decently on an emotional level, but it doesn't really land, I think, in a larger thematic level, which is unfortunate because I think it would have made that hit really hard. That said, the Sea Beast looked real cool. That was a lot of fun. I always enjoy, like, underwater horror is one of my favorite types of horror. So just the Sea Beast here, I thought was very cool. I enjoyed that a lot. One other thing I wanted to note too was something I meant to mention last episode was Pharazôn had a scene where he sort of lamented the elves having the sort of light of the Valar and how that sort of made him very jealous of them. And I liked that. I meant to mention it because it adds a little bit more depth to his anger and just trust of the elves. Because all we'd gotten to this point was like, they took our jobs sort of stuff from season 1, which was very weak. Very, very weak. That jealousy that he feels, that he expressed in that scene, much stronger. And more Tolkien-esque motivation for his character. Jealousy at the light of the gods. And I think that lands much harder. So I like that slight shift in his motivation. So much so that it's interesting that he uses the Palantir here to, and I like the effect, the like cracking of the like literal world around him when he used it was a cool visual. And to see a vision and using the Elfstone, which is the very thing that he condemned the Queen for doing. So I thought that landed very, very well. And then to end on a positive of the episode, everything to do with the dwarves is great. Like Disa and Durin, both of them, and Durin the Elder's corruption with the ring, very just works on every level with me. Disa sort of holding a protest with Durin to stop them from using the mines and using her ability with the bats, I thought was great. Sauron trying to manipulate Durin to get some more mithril was also really strong. Durin the Elder sort of not being willing to take off the ring, but Durin the Younger pleading with him to do so, and Durin the Younger sort of his pain at seeing his father be this man. And I love Disa's lines like, "You always see the light at the end of the tunnel." The light at the end of the cave. Like it was just all very well done, and I continue to love the dwarf storyline, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And Disa again continues to be my queen. I love her to death. Hopefully not to her death. So we'll see where that ultimately leads us in the next few episodes. I think that's everything that I wanted to hit upon. Generally, again, a strong episode, but continues the trend of things that I love and things that I don't like, with a couple nuances here and there. But generally, overall, still enjoying the season, still liking it, even though it's not a home run masterpiece. Still think it's a solid, fun show that I am deeply enjoying. But what did you all think? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. I am going to go and rest and sleep a little bit, but take care of yourselves, and I hope you all, my friends, live long and prosper.